Laska Hirlik, and thank you, Minister, for coming to the House today. I have a few specific questions for you around agriculture, and particularly the relationship between revenue and agriculture. Firstly, I want to ask you, Minister, for an update on where we are with getting the approval from the European Commission on the levy for a lower rate of stamp duty for the purpose of consolidation. Farmers are really keen to know when that is going to happen. And the other thing I want to ask you around that is just, will it be applied retrospectively to January 2018? I also want to ask you, will you consider changes to the age limits for the farm transfers for the young farmers, the young trained farmers, to enable those who want to take up farming and to purchase from non-relatives at the lower stamp duty rate, that they won't be confined to being under 35 years of age. And in particular, I'm mindful of returning immigrants in that situation who are returning home and wish to make a career out of farming and wish to purchase land. And the other thing, Minister, I just want to ask you is around the measures that were in the budget, the measures that some of them have sunset clauses which end on the 31st of the 12th, 2018, and in particular around the stock relief and the stock relief for young trained farmers. Is there any work being done to extend that beyond 2018? The other point I would just make to you, Minister, is around the pressures for farmers, particularly low-income farmers, around complying with revenue and engaging accountants and all of that. That's an expensive thing to do when they really, more often than not, show very little or no profit whatsoever. I know we read in the papers this morning about dairy farmers increasing their profits, but that certainly isn't the case for very many farmers in the west of Ireland, and certainly from Mayo, where I come from. So I suppose what I'm asking, one of the things of one of the attributes of any effective good tax system is simplicity. And if we can look at making the reporting procedures simpler for farmers as well, particularly the low-income farmers. And just finally, Minister, I am very concerned about the impact of vulture funds on the farming community, particularly now that more loans are going to be sold off. My experience in talking to farmers who find themselves in these positions, and often with not what you would call non-performing loans, but loans that they need to be restructured to suit their business or to suit their income. And I would ask you to do everything possible to force these vulture funds to engage with farmers in the first place, and to sit down and to work out a restructuring plan with them, because it is the whole vulture fund farming relationship, if you could call it a relationship at the moment, is in danger of having a very detrimental short, medium and long-term effect on rural Ireland, and indeed on the very fabric of rural Ireland and rural communities. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Senator. Minister.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. The script mainly relates to the issue that the Senator rose, Conway-Walsh rose last, if I could say it, the last, but I will get to the other points as well. While the Minister for Finance and Public Expenditure has responsibility for taxation generally, Minister Creed liaises closely with him on agri-taxation policy, and just a public consultation on agri-taxation was recently launched by our departments, and we consult regularly in regard to this with farm bodies. So perhaps some of the earlier issues that the Senator raised she might consider making a submission to that public consultation. Operationally, the Revenue Commissioners have responsibility for taxation, and they have assured me that they understand the temporary cash flow difficulties that can arise for taxpayers, including farmers, from time to time. And when cash flow related challenges arise or are expected to arise, Revenue encourages early engagement with them as a means towards agreeing a way forward in terms of tax compliance. And they've also informed me that in their experience, where such early engagement occurs, it's generally possible to arrive at an accommodation that gets the taxpayer successfully beyond the payment pressure point. The Government has committed to assisting all viable small and medium enterprises operating in Ireland to support growth and employment in the economy. Again, primarily responsibility for banking policy lies with the Department of Finance, which liaises with the Central Bank and the Financial Services Ombudsman with regard to consumer protection in the area of personal banking, the purchase of financial products and financial issues generally. The Department of Finance informs me that the sale of a loan does not change the terms and conditions which are attached to the loan before it was sold. The borrower has exactly the same protections and rights and obligations as they had before the sale. These include the Consumer Protection Code, Code of Conduct on Mortgage Arrears, and the Central Bank Supervision and Enforcement Act 2013, Section 48, which addresses lending to small and medium-sized enterprises regulations of 2015 as amended. Notwithstanding the fact that borrowers are protected under the existing framework, the Government is supporting the Consumer Protection Regulation of Credit Servicing Firms Amendment Bill of 2018 that was introduced by Deputy Michael McGrath in February. This bill, which passed second stage in the Dáil in March, will require credit owners to be regulated. With the approval of the Government, officials from the Department of Finance are engaging with the Attorney-General's Office, the Central Bank and Fianna Fáil to resolve technical issues with the bill and draft amendments. And I would urge people who are having difficulty making repayments to financial institutions to seek professional assistance in finding ways to resolve the issue. I'm aware of the work that is being done by some of the representative organisations in helping farmers with this. I'm conscious also that the prolonged winter will have put some individual farmers under pressure in terms of cash flow. In recognition of this, Minister Creed recently met with the CEOs of all the main banks and discussed the current cash flow and liquidity position of the primary sector. The Minister emphasised to them that they should recognise the temporary and exceptional nature of the current situation and that they should be flexible and put in place measures to support their customers. They indicated that there are no signs that there is a liquidity issue across the sector as a whole, while acknowledging that there may be pressures on individual cases, and they assured us that they will provide support such as extended overdraft facilities and term loans to their customers, and asked that those in difficulty should contact them as soon as possible. In the context of those meetings, Minister Creed asked the CEOs regarding their approach to non-performing loans and stressed that any sale of farm assets obviously impacts negatively on the ability to meet ongoing commitments. The banks who have sold or who are selling such loans have informed us that the proportion of farms affected is relatively low, and sales mostly occur in cases where there has been no meaningful engagement with the bank in question. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Supplementary.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach, and thank you, Minister, for your answer. And I do appreciate that there was more specific questions within my questions, if you like, and I look to get them further from the Minister for Agriculture. I would just like to say that it's vitally important that there's better congruence between the Department of Finance and the Department of Agriculture to ensure that farmers who are really struggling around all of these issues have clear and accurate information, but are also aware, so that officials within the Department of Finance, within Revenue, understand the nature of farming and the nature of the flexibility around income, where you may find that you have a number of months without any income. And that is in no small part due to sometimes delayed payments within the Department of Agriculture and all of that, whether it be for a computer problem or the commonage framework plans or whatever. So that congruence there, I think, can create an easier climate for farmers to be able to certainly meet their obligations, but also to be helped where needed. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Senator. Minister.
Thank you, Senator. And certainly some of the issues you raised specifically at the outset are, the stamp duty, the stock relief and the change of limits are something that I think merit consideration. Certainly, I think this stock relief has rolled in the past. Same with the capital acquisitions tax relief and the values that have actually increased more recently. And just to say that in 2012-13, the there was a full agri-taxation review which was conducted, which was the first time one had happened in a generation, effectively. And I think there has, as a result of that, been a more continuous and ongoing collaboration and communication between Revenue, Department of Finance and the Department of Agriculture. So I think it's something that needs to be continued and welcomed, so that we can fine-tune the agri-taxation policy to reflect the realities on the ground. So I think it's something we all are committed to. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Senator.